Now, here we are with the oldest race caller in the industry. Not even close. The youngest, Nathan, 22, coming in hot, calling races at Penn. And I wanted to talk. We ran into each other and we're like, oh, the Governor's Cup's coming. And I was like, all right, let's talk about it. So why don't you tell everybody about how did you become the youngest caller in racing?
Well, it started with the racing symposium where I met with Chris Mackerlane last year, and through that we had a good mutual contact. So when the job opened, it was mentioned through the grapevine that hey, there's an opening for an announcer, and it coincided kind of perfectly with me graduating from the racetrack industry program. I was a senior at the time, so it kind of coordinated really well. So I walked the stage the day of the Preakness, and then a few days later, I'm on a plane immediately to Harrisburg, a place I've never been before, when it all came together. And then by June, I was finally finally is a bit of a weird word to describe it, but I was now the race caller at Penn National. That's how that job specifically landed. It was incredible luck. But luck's not a choice.
No, that comes down to your hard work. I mean, so were you like the guy that was like watching races and calling in the shower or just like goofing around, or how did you like even prepare for this?
Well, for this, the way I really kind of built up my reputation to get to this point started with really the racetrack industry program itself. Going to a horse racing college like RTIP gives you a really good opportunity to meet a lot of people really fast. And the good news with me is that I'm a social butterfly, so it was very good to like take advantage of that. The other part of it was just being a go-getter. Whenever someone offered like, "Hey, we'll let you call one here," we'll let you call one here, I really tried to do as many as I could. I think I got about 183 races, mostly through guest calls and like one-off fill-in jobs at a bunch of random racetracks
Wow.
from freshman year to senior year. Like, I once drove 7 hours to Los Alamitos to call a 12-second horse race, just to get one more in me and to say I called a race in California. That's the kind of attitude that really helped kind of build up the name, because all these different tracks would be like, oh yeah, Nathan, he called one for us, or he filled in for us, and the grapevine's quite quick.
I love it, man. I was when I was like 19, I was on a stage at Del Mar Racetrack introducing 91X bands, talking about horse races, and one of the only young guys that would try to relate to people. And I thought I maybe a trainer one day. That fell apart. I just wasn't going to wake up that early. But that's commitment. So I also, you got Sketchy the horse guy here. Like, what's all that? What's that all about?
So, Sketchy the Horse Guy was before Nathan the Caller. That was a YouTube channel I made when I was 14 years old. And when I was on, and it started with me just making videos about the Kentucky Derby. That was how it began. But that channel has really evolved into something else with 25,000 subscribers on it. And the big thing about that channel is it's a place of just self-expression. I make the videos I want to make, which usually revolves around horse racing history, which is my truest passion besides race calling. Just going over a bunch of old horses, random facts, that's interesting to me. And I was able to eventually market it in a way that a lot of kind of younger people found that interesting. And so because of that, especially in the last like 2 years, my subscriber count has really grown. But that channel's been a little bit of everything. That, and also like introductory education videos, for people getting new into horse racing. But the biggest kind of goal of Sketchy the Horse Guy was, when I was a kid, I learned a lot of horse racing through YouTube, but I didn't have a lot of YouTube personalities to fall in love with. It was just re-uploaded documentaries or YouTube videos. So when I make these videos, I think about what my younger self would have wanted to watch, and I try to make that.
I love it, dude. And that's the thing is, you're obviously, like the torch has to get passed to 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds if we're going to get this thing back. And I think, The fact that you're thinking about what would you have wanted to watch when you were back in the day, and obviously I'm coming at it from a hardcore gambling perspective, and I want to only if for those that have money, and only for those that really want to tackle these crazy intellectual challenges. So do you, like, on your show, do you talk about ever handicapping, or you, like, in your journey? I know you love the game, but do you see yourself as like as a gambler? Like, do you like to just kind of have fun with it, or do you like to play a certain type of wager? Why don't you tell me about that part of yourself?
I tend to like to have fun with it. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a serious handicapper. I'm definitely not like you in that sense. But I also will enjoy analyzing a race, and that is something that actually kicked off the YouTube channel, was making individual Kentucky Derby profiles, to kind of give the background of the horse, where the goal wasn't necessarily to make the ultimate pick, but to make sure everyone had all the information necessary in order to make their own educated opinions. So I still do make some form of analytical handicapping videos, but it's definitely not the main subject of it. But I think that's something that is always worthy of discussion, and a big debate in racing is, I think sometimes people get pigeonholed in the fact that there's only one way you should be allowed to enjoy it. That's sometimes an opinion I see be echoed, where you should, if you're not, spending money gambling, then, you're not a real fan. But at the same time, I feel, and then there's like also fans who maybe look down on the gambling aspect and wish it could move away from that. When, in my opinion, the beauty of horse racing is that there's so many different things to appreciate about it, and if you can maximize the ways that people can enjoy it, I think racing's better off for it, even if it's not always the gambler. But I think also doing better by the gambler is something that we have really failed to do in recent years.
Oh, I would go way longer than recent years.
I was trying to be nice.
I get it, and I'm not nice. It's not as nice as you. So I definitely feel like this industry needs to get, like their stuff together, and they need to figure out, like, hey, why are we so afraid of having the conversation that everybody's having behind the scenes and going, am I going to put money on this horse? Is it going to win? Is this actually a good bet or a bad bet? And yeah, the ego matters. Like, if I'm right, I want everyone to know I'm right. If I'm wrong, then I should get, somebody should give me some shit for it. But like, ultimately, when we talk about like this younger fan, just before we go into the card a little bit, because I want to look at, we talked about maybe going over a couple races, because you have your big day today, and we're going to put this on and starts this evening and everything. But when you look at the races, so I want you to look at it through two ways. So when you look at races right now, what do you use? And what do you think people that are in their 20s use or should use to like get started? Or do you think they have to have mentors? Do you think they need to have like somebody like the NHC offers like a mentor program? Like, I don't know, take it away with like, how do we get people like you to actually understand how to really take the game serious?
When it comes to like betting and stuff, I think the easiest way to truly get an education is by actually physically being there. And that's one of the biggest pitfalls, I think, of recent racing, is that because most money is done off track, the on-track experience, I think, is a lot of young bettors' true education, because you have other people there who you can ask questions for, and also you physically get the program, which has all the past performances. If you try to buy a program online, I think it's a lot harder I think mentally to say, let me buy the program.
Well, you would have to buy the daily racing form to get the PPs, right? Is that what you mean? Right. Or because in the program, they're going to just have like blurbs.
Yeah, stuff like that, like those kinds of that kind of piece of information. I think it's a lot easier mentally when you're physically there to say, there's this book in front of me. Then instead of saying, oh, I have to pay like a premium membership to like get this piece of information. Yeah. I think that's kind of the big obstacle, is knowing where to start. I think a lot of young people can kind of find it a little intimidating to know where to start. I mean, Equibase is where you get the database from if you want to just learn what's going on with all these horses, but how do you interpret it and all of that? So I think there's definitely some obstacle in that, and that was something I tried to tackle vaguely through a video series called Terms in Horse Racing, where I would just go over all the vocabulary. Mm-hmm. But that didn't have as much to do with with gambling. But I think the physical experience is probably one of the easiest ways to kind of learn about it. But also, getting to that point is something that we haven't really set up an effective pipeline for.
Yeah, it triggers me back when I was in engineering school at UCLA. Like I was the best way I learned was through examples, and so by seeing professors walk through beam deflections and soil analysis and water analysis, and that's how I learned best. Because I don't think that's, I mean, I have friends who went to Harvard Business School and they do case studies on all these, companies and why they're doing this with their products. But I think literally examples is how I would propose that even we reach the younger generation, is finding a way to present races maybe from the past and then go through like tutorials, probably very fast paced, probably very silly, probably goofy. Maybe there's some stakes on the line, or maybe we do it in real time and we'll goof around with a couple races here. But I think, like, do you find that that's like, because you can learn all the terms and you can find out what everything means, but the end goal is to be able to look at a horse race and figure out what are the chances against the obvious. Because if you're going to beat a 20% takeout on average, you're going to have to take a very hard stand against the favorite to get yourself, let's say if the favorite normally has 30% and you think this favorite has 15%, then you've saved 15. And so now you have to find another horse in the race that has some upside that somebody else can't see. So you really need those two factors. So that would probably be the first place I would start, with introducing racing for profit to people that are in their 20s. Do you think like that kind of thing, that model of thinking is too much, too fast? And I'm really talking more than just the obvious, like, basic fan, which I know you're definitely talking about the importance of honoring all the fans, but like, to get to someone that could be a gambler, like, do you think that they would respond to like that kind of thinking, or do you think we need to do something way different?
It's a little difficult to ask that because the mind of because you know the mind of the gambler a lot better than I would. But I feel like the kind of person you are describing, someone that ends up like you with that kind of ability, with that for profit and beating the house, in this case the takeout. That's kind of the end goal of a pipeline. So I guess there's like, you have to find kind of those people with that kind of potential. And when it comes to marketing to them, I think kind of in terms of modern marketing for gambling, the big thing that has really sucked people in is these things like Stake, Kalshi, Polymarket. A lot of these have very aggressive marketing campaigns that collaborate with, say, big streamers or aggressive YouTube ads, stuff like that, or Super Bowl commercials. I think that changing racing's advertisement in that sort of way, that I think clicks the young gambler, because young people do want to gamble, and they gamble on things that I don't even understand. I mean, with the whole like Kalshi thing, how hard could it possibly be to then say, bet on the horses now, and here's how you can do it? And I think also a lot of Gen Z kind of operates through humor and irony, and there's legitimately a lot of people who like the fun irony of, I'm going to lose money on a horse, or I'm going to win money on a horse. Like, there's a slight bit of humor to that, because if you take a step back and you're not in that racing world, there is a little bit of silliness to it. But I think that kind of irony, this generation loves irony. It's legitimately been a tool for politics, is irony and humor. So to use that for horse racing too, that's, I don't know if that completely answers your question, but that's what I know, and I know what I don't know.
Well, no, that makes sense. So even if there's a way of leading them to losing less, or looking, even if they were going to forecast, okay, I'm going to lose $500 today, or I'm going to lose my $20. Here's the fastest way I can lose my $20, or, it's, this is the kind of like part of the brain that I think, Gen X, Gen Z, well, there's all these gens now. There's like Gen Alpha, whatever you want to call. Every 10 years there's a new gen, right? So I think the humor piece, because like you even said it to me like earlier today. You're like, you're one of the only people that smiles, and the only horse players that smile, because everybody's so bitter and grumpy and complaining about everything. And I do relate to that. So thank you for honoring the smile, but it's, it's a smile that's come with a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, tears. But I am very aware that everything is happening for this amazing reason. And when it comes to attracting others and creating a community, humor's the best. I mean, that's what it is on all the reels, is just humor and shock, right? So I think that's helpful. So when I'm building something, so I think I definitely would want to think more about how I can integrate that in and stuff, and like badges, like things like that. When I'm working on a game, and it's like you think about badges, like even if you're not making money, it's kind of cool if there's irony in the badges. That could be something that would be fun, right? So
Yeah, that could really work. One of the most sneaky ways that people kind of promote things nowadays is through TikTok commissions, where basically you sponsor a product in a TikTok video, and the TikTok video will be about a completely different topic, but they'll sneak in a sponsorship for gambling. Now, that is also a point of controversy, I will warn, but like an example of a way that kind of modern advertising has gone is a totally normal, random-looking person like me, like a young-looking person, will talk about a random story like, here's the 5 ways that I survived high school. And then on the 4th reason, they'll say something totally different, like gambling on the football games. And if you want to gamble on your favorite football games, bet on Polymarket. It'll be like a uninformed advertisement. I think it's a little slimy, but it is a very modern way that like promotion has been done through these kind of social media fast shock social media sites like TikTok and Instagram, as you were kind of mentioning a little bit earlier.
So then, before we get into the card real quick here, I wanted to ask you then, if you had the wand, or you were Gandalf for the industry, like what would you suggest, like 2 or 3 things that racing could do, or campaigns that people could do, knowing what knowing that the takeout's not going to drop anytime soon, knowing that there's all this fighting, there's certain racetrack entities that are just very control oriented and very protective, and then you've got others that are a little more progressive. You have the smaller tracks, you have the medium sized tracks, and then you have the big tracks. So, and thinking about that the game is measured by handle. Like, what would you, and I'm not saying this has to be just with 20-year-olds, if we're going to use that label, but just are there any things that come to your mind now that you've been in this game a while and you're coming at it from a really fresh perspective, which I really appreciate? No pressure. You could say something ridiculous. It's just, I kind of want the audience to think, like, if we're going to tackle this problem, it's got to come from, outside the industry, or from a different age group. So what would you do if you could do anything?
For magic wand stuff, I think I was kind of alluding it to earlier. I would make horse racing replays free. Now this, I know, could be a bit contentious with all the subscriptions for RTN, but I think that a completely overhauled Equibase-like website where you can see the horse's picture, see their stats, nice and detailed, and access to every single video that they have, that's the kind of stuff that is usable in the Hong Kong Jockey Club, for example. Now, the Hong Kong Jockey Club, before I go any further, is not a good example of what we can do in America, because the Hong Kong Jockey Club Hong Kong is like the size of New York City. The United States is, it's so huge. So I'm not saying completely do everything the Hong Kong does, but one thing I really love about the Hong Kong Jockey Club, and also even the Middle East and Japan, is the transparency of information. If a horse has anything wrong with it, a veterinary report, a steward's report, it's there for everyone to look at. There's no bullshit. Everything is right there. So transparency in that sense, and also access to the replays makes it easier for someone to be like, okay, I want to do my homework on this race. Hey, look, there's all this stuff. And it gives me all these stats about, like, hey, here's how the horse ran, here's how he improved, all this other stuff. I feel like too much information in horse racing is hidden behind paywalls, and of course there's some that should be, a little bit paid up, that's a profitable business. But I feel like we're a little too compact to the point where it feels inaccessible. So that's my first kind of Gandalf idea, would be that. I think also this one's just unrealistic, but the unionizing of a some sort of national horse racing in the United States. That one's just a pipe dream, though. So that is quick and easy as that, because that's already kind of been proven that we're not really ready for that, and we never really were. If Heist is any indicator of that. Let's see, there was a third thing that I was really thinking of here.
Let me go back to your data thing real fast before you come to the third. I love what you said, because that's how I learned. That's how I got good. I would go over to the Del Mar OTB, and sometimes I would sneak in, and I would go to the back and I would watch replays, and I would watch replays. And then I would go to the track when the racetrack was open, and we couldn't watch. The internet was like still just like on the come up. So we didn't have access. And now that we have access, like there's something that's really emotionally connecting to watching a horse move and struggle or get through it or fight traffic. And I think that's, I think it's unlocking part of that right hand side of the brain, maybe, where it's that creative, imaginative, whether you see this horses. I mean, I've got friends that are really good gamblers and they like horses like Union Rags. And I'm like, why would you ever like this horse? But that's me, because I just don't like the way that horse moved. But there's other horses that they might not like as much as I do. Like there was a horse named Lita Justice that was just angry and would like bite everybody, and sometimes wouldn't run a step, would come out of the gate and do nothing. But when the horse would move, it was like a lightning bolt. It's probably one of the fastest accelerating horses I've ever seen, and won the Breeders' Cup one year. But anyway, so I'm with you. I think that this has been talked about even on the panel I was on at the CAW stuff last a couple of days ago. The one of the gentlemen, Pat Cummings, mentioned again that data needs to be free. So you're hammering it here. There's no reason that you should not be able to just like very easily go to like a news. It's kind of like a magazine, but you just go there, put a horse's name in, watch his races, because the curve to like even look at the numbers and try and sit with that over and over again with all these horses without watching a race easily and quickly, I think is a huge inhibitor. So I'm glad that you mentioned the replays too, because that is the data. And I'm not even sure the political stuff around getting the rights to that, given RTN's relationships, but that is, I think you absolutely nailed it with that one. But let's go on to your third one if you came back to you.
See, those are the main ones, kind of the transparency of information.
Okay.
But I think also, I think just giving racing a personality sometimes. I feel like sometimes racing lacks a personality. Now, some tracks do have personality, but I think sometimes we can be so kind of uptight and so serious that you end up doing nothing, and then you don't create a cult, maybe a culture or identity, or you don't know how to share the culture. There is a very interesting, kind of politically incorrect, okay, no, not kind of, entirely politically incorrect, side and culture of horse racing that's really interesting to watch, but is not, obviously that's not shared at all. But I mean, think about football. Football, of course, there's the people who love the sport of it, the performance of it all, but some people just really like watching that sport because of the people in it, just how well advertised the personalities are, whether it's the commentators or just like, hey, this guy is really popular because he's a crazy football fan. Or look at hockey and these fights. I think sometimes you got to be a little dirty, and have a little bit of that edge. And I think that even if there was just one racetrack that kind of embraced kind of a more edgy style, or the other hand, like Canterbury, where they go full family friendly and turn into a family palace, I think that horse racing should be allowed to be more than one thing. And I think kind of that personality thing can really be like, you know what? That track after 10 o'clock, some licentious stuff is going on. And then this other track's like, look at these cute little corgis. I feel like a racetrack can be one of the most versatile environments to really pull off a lot of odd events that maybe you couldn't do at other smaller stadiums.
I'm with you, brother. I'm all about, first of all, if you're going to be good at anything, you have to lean into your fears. Contrarianism is usually how success begets success, or it's the pathway, it's the formula. So, I think you talked about something that is near and dear to my heart, which is personality, and personality of players is to me being forgotten. You've got commentators, you've got trainers, jockeys, owners, and racetrack executives. And if you asked somebody on the street, not on the street's the wrong one. If you asked a horse player who are the most interesting people in horse racing, it's like, they're gonna point to probably Bob Baffert because he's just done so much and he had a lot of charisma once upon a time. And then you look at certain jockeys that are very polite, and it's just so politically correct, which I think is kind of what you're saying. That's like almost too polite in some ways. It's like we're not talking about the fact that these jockeys hate each other when they go home, or these gamblers. There's rivalries in gamblers, like even within our community, there's people don't like each other. There's just a lot of, it's like you're talking to your parents. It's like everybody's like talking to their parents, and it's like racing is still like 50 odd years, behind. And nowadays with the reels and the doom scrolling and the shock and awe stuff, like, obviously we don't want to push it into something that's going to be detrimental to the idea that these horses are very well cared for, and we don't want to talk about people's lives getting wrecked by gambling. So it's a slippery slope, but I do think that competitions and contests and ego wars are very important in this game. But thanks for that. That was good, man. We might have to have you come back on and talk more, but I want to, just because you got your big day today, let's talk about I want you to introduce your card here. I'm not super familiar with this day, but I'm bringing up the PPs and we'll just run through maybe a race or two here, and I'll kind of walk you through some things. And but why don't you introduce the day? Tell me what's going on. It starts tonight, right?
Yep, 5:45 is the first post, Friday, August 14th. 5:45 first post, and you don't want to miss it because the stakes card is the first 3 races. So normally a lot of tracks will save their best for last, but we don't have lights on our turf course. So when we run our big turf events, we run them at the beginning, similar to kind of a European style race card, where a lot of the like big feature events are at the beginning. So I think that offers something kind of interesting. The action is at the beginning. There are 3 stakes races. 2 of them are PA bred, and one of them, the Governor's Cup, is an open race. But the first 3 races would technically be a 50-cent all stakes, all turf, pick 3. So I think in terms of just kind of like jingling keys in front of a gambler, that'd probably be the best parts of it would be that. But we also have 9 races still going on in the nighttime. Okay. So hopefully in the nighttime, if you need some nice late night horse action, you got Penn National here for us. So I guess one of the stakes races you wanted to talk about first was the first race, the Marshall Jenny.
Yeah. So, and just to recap that, so what days does Penn race normally during the week again? So everyone knows that, and then the times.
Typically, it's Wednesday to Friday, 5:45 first post. Sometimes we'll run on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday if there's a concert, like next week, that's what we're going to do. But typically, in a week, rest assured, it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at Penn National, starting at 5:45 the evening. Okay. Of course, this card being a kind of a special one with kind of more races, above average purses, but, I'm quite excited about it because, I'm selfish here. As a race caller, I've never called races this big before. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I'm going to be excited to have a small part in, of course, I love the small horses, but getting to kind of get some bigger horses that are shipping out to come and take on these races is also just as exciting. It's a little refreshing.
Yeah, and I think if you don't mind, can I say one thing I would love race callers to do?
Yeah, sure.
I would just like to know the odds of the horse when they cross the line, roughly. I'm not sure if you do that normally, but just when the horse crosses the line, is it a favorite? Is it a long shot? Like, that's something that really is, because sometimes you're in the middle of a race, you don't see the beginning, and I think that adds to me to the excitement of it. So. Anyway.
Yeah, I try to, I've experimented with that, but I definitely don't, say, first place was the favorite, and then it was the second choice, something like that, but I've been trying to practice that, when the horses load into the gate, I try to mention when the post-time favorite's loading, I'll say, But the only thing that I don't like about that is because odds shift so much, I can
Yeah,
then be proven wrong in the next second.
that's true.
But
That's true.
that's why I try saying post-time favorite, because then you can make the caveat of not gate departing favorite. Um,
Well, I would say just like when the horses are finishing, I just want to know: is it a long shot, or is it a more favored horse, or is it a price? So because that's the story. Because the real story, I think, is wow, this horse did something that nobody expected. Oh my god, like that's crazy. So that's what I like connect. I love all these guys too. Like I mean. I think Travis Stone does a great job. Michael Rona was the guy that I really connected the most with.
Super underrated. I love Michael Rona.
Dude, Michael Rona, the guy can tell a story that's so deep, and it's like he's weaving like three stories at once. And I just hope that, yeah, he gets another crack at doing some bigger races. But I'm excited for you, man. This is gonna be cool. So hopefully you don't screw it up. And if you do, it's all good. We're still gonna have fun.
No
You're only
pressure.
you're only 22, so just hang in there. But yeah, so I was gonna kind of go through this card a little, just this race, and most people on the show don't really see me do this, but I think because it's I don't know, just I'm in the mood. So let's talk about the first race. So when you look at a race and you try to make a decision to gamble, what kind of goes through your mind, and then I'll tell you how I kind of approach it.
When it comes to me, like, one of the more recent tools I've really been into has been Brisnet specifically, because I got a free subscription for it. But
That helps.
it does help, yeah. But when it comes to like one of the things I'm starting to learn slowly is trying to do public handicapping, because that's one of my other responsibilities that I've assumed, which I've never done before. And kind of the big thing that I'll just try to do is just explain my main three picks. And I think kind of in this race, typically in an average Penn National race, which is claiming an allowance races, the big thing and Caleb Keller said something that I really liked, and it is, in stakes races, you're looking for what you don't like, because every horse is good in a stakes race, but in a lower race, like an allowance or a claiming race, you're looking for stuff that you do like. So kind of and I really like that sort of attitude, because I try carrying that in. Like, when it comes to like a 4,000 claiming race, these horses are not the best, they're journeymen. But if you can find something that you like maybe the horse is getting a break, maybe the horse is returning to a familiar distance, just kind of finding enough more stuff that you do like in a lower class race, and in a stakes race finding the least amount of stuff that you don't like.
Yeah, I think I would. It's hard. It's every race to me is different. So I don't even. I'm with you in trying to segment stakes versus non-stakes. To me, and that's why it's hard when people ask me in tournaments, like, what do you do? Like, would you take this approach or that approach? I'm like, every single day is entirely different. And there is no waiting to the last race or not waiting to the last race. It all depends on the cards. It's like, trying to, draft a fantasy football team. Like, if you're going to take the one position and you're on the left side of the board, then you have to think 5-6 picks down, because if you're going to take Jamar Chase or Gibbs for number one, then if you're going to take a running back and you need to make sure you get a top wide receiver, because, if you don't have a top wide receiver, top running back, then you're going to be scraping and you're going to have to get a bunch of wide receivers late. So the same with horses is like, how do I figure out what to do? It's all based on the horses that day. So I don't have a ton of experience with Penn. So I wanted to ask you, before I go into like an overall template of a strategy maybe here to give people, a reason to think, first of all, is it fast and firm there? There's no like funky business with the weather today. What's going on there?
Well, the weather's pretty nice over here. I will admit that when it comes to like Penn's turf course, it's really firm. We had to take races off the turf due to the turf course getting beat up a bit. We've let the turf course rest. Okay. It's growing back in nicely. But part of that is, it's not like, it's not like a giant tall grass field like in Jurassic Park. It's a very, very lean crew cut lawn.
Yeah.
And also, we moved in the rail a little bit too, to also let some of the other parts of the turf course grow too. So the races are going to be a bit tight. So turns are going to be a bit sharp. The turf course is going to be, it's probably going to be at least a little bit hard.
Okay.
Not bit firm here. In terms of the horses here, it's kind of a bit of a mystery because a lot of times I'm dealing with horses that run at this track all the time, but now we're dealing with kind of new horses. Some of these horses here are veterans, like the number 8 Fierce and Strong won last year's Alphabet Soup, but that was over a mile and a 16th, and then the trainer said in a press release that the horse seems more like a 5 furlong horse. They're cutting the horse back, and they've had a bit of hard luck in their last couple of races, and some of that's just, racing luck. But, like, a lot of times the invaders do really good at Penn National. Like, the Penn Mile usually is won by an invading horse. And that I think also sometimes comes in through these Pennsylvania races. You'll get a horse that is Pennsylvania bred, but will run at Parks and maybe Delaware, and then they'll just swoop on down here and kind of steal it.
Okay.
A bit. That's kind of a running theme that I've kind of noticed. But I think like a lot of these horses are very evenly matched. These kind of lower listed stakes,
Yeah.
classy runners.
Okay. So in the background, I don't think this is going to pop up, but I'm going to check something. Can you see what I'm doing in the sun? Is it still on the same screen?
Oh yeah, the DRF.
Is it still in the DRF?
Yeah, it's still in the DRF.
Okay. I was just going to look at some odds here to see if I can get an idea of what the odds are going to be like in these races too, to look at some of the overseas stuff. So that's one thing I do is just to, I want to get an idea of what the price is going to be on the horses, even though, because right now it's so early in the betting. And it doesn't always come out. Sometimes these European guys, they have these markets set, and sometimes they're just not available. But I'm not really seeing what I was hoping to see. So let me go back to where to start. So you want me to kind of walk you through how I would like look at something like this, or
Sure, yeah.
would you want?
Let's look into
Would you
the
prefer me
mind
to?
of Raw or Die.
Yeah, right. So to me, all right, yeah, we're not going to get the odds here. So when you look at a race like this, your goal is to find 30%. Okay, so I got to find 30% here. I got to overcome basically 30%. All right, so you can't really look at the live odds here because there's no money in the pools. So we'll just treat the morning line as what it is. So what I would do is I would assign a probability to every single one of these horses. Obviously not the also eligibles. I'm assuming that the scratches are not in, so we're not going to know those for a while. But if I were to look at this, I would say, okay, who are the top 3 favorites real quick and get an idea and trying to put a probability on them. Just, in this case, we're going really quick. I've looked at this a little bit, not a ton, but just to get, quick and dirty. Fierce and Strong to me is not a 5-2 horse. Should probably be at least 4-1. So can't bet there. Jean Valjean, I would say, given these races back here, like this horse definitely has high probability. I would say somewhere minimum, probably 25%. Could be a little higher if I dug deeper. And then Talented Man. Again, I'm just using my models and my brain, and I can kind of like do my supercomputer stuff. And I'm not going to tell you all the reasons, but when I'm looking at speed, that would be the number one, is how fast is a horse. There's like 20 factors I would use in understanding a race, and then kind of weigh them differently and go, okay, in this race, speed matters more, or time, or buyer, or thoroughgraph, or whatever number you wanted to use for that to quantify a horse. What can they run if they run their A race? So that's one factor. And what's nice about this race is none of these horses are fast based on what I'm looking at. So I'm not seeing any situation here where I can justify a horse being below 3-1. So that said, the question becomes, it's really easy. It's like either you find a horse that's going to be 10-1, because if I'm saying that, a horse shouldn't be really above 15%, I identified a 20% and a 25. But if I'm looking at this race and saying these horses don't deserve to be really above 6 or 7-1, then that means I need to get to 10-1. So I have 2 options. I can find a horse that is high probability and try to clip and get from, like, so Jean Valjean, this horse probably should be 3-1, like flat. So if the horse is 3-1, I'm not going to bet it. If the horse goes off at 6-1, there's a problem. Something might be wrong with the horse, which is a whole nother conversation. When the horses don't get bet, you have to be careful, but that doesn't mean that's always that case. But there is that case that arrives, especially in the claiming ranks. But here, Jean Valjean, if he runs one of these races in the back here, he runs this race at Laurel, he wins. So I'll give him a 25% chance. If he goes off at 4, I'll consider it. If he goes off at 3, but you have the odds drops and you have to see the pools and stuff. But that's how I would look at this. He's the most deserving horse, and I don't know if he'll get bet or not, whatever. But the other horse that's a little interesting here is the one at big odds too. Not that I really think this horse is going to win, but I have to assume what happens if Jean Valjean doesn't run, right? Fierce and Strong could easily come in and pick this up too, but I'm not really going to bank on that because, like I said, I think it's like 20%. And so for me, it's if Jean Valjean is not the same horse because this last race is really, really disgusting. So then it's like, okay, well, maybe this horse is not the same. This horse is 7. Maybe it's time to retire. But this horse is a winner here, obviously. So if the horse doesn't run, I would move to the 1. And I would say maybe the 1 can break out of there and steal this thing, which is very unlikely. But to me, it's, a 10% type, maybe 10%. So I would want like at least, 12, 15 to 1 on this horse to try to bring that home. So that's kind of the way I would look at it, doing quick and dirty. I'd want to watch replays. I'd want to look at all the figures. I want to look at the splits. I'd want to look at the class. I'd want to trace all the horses. I'd want to understand the nuances of these trainers, see if there's any advantages that some of these trainers have in this context. I would want to understand the spirit of the horse. I want to look at obviously the workouts as well and go deeper. But that's kind of just a rudimentary way of looking at it. Because to me, it's like scanning the cards and seeing, hey, is there a bet here? Well, I just showed you that the 1 and the 7 would be 2 horses that I would consider. And again, when I go deeper, I might back away because I'm still confused by what happened last time to Jean here. And maybe it was just he was overmatched, but we could even watch it, but we won't right now. But anyway, any questions about this race?
That was pretty good. I get what you're kind of aiming at with this one. To me, I'm kind of the opinion that this race is a bit open. In terms of this, Kalahari Not Sorry, that's actually one of the few horses that I have that I've called in the past. And that's always kind of interesting to me is oh yeah, this horse, they ran in an allowance race, and oh, now they're going up. But when that horse ran, that was all I really remembered was that he never gave it up. He went to the lead and he just never seemed to let it go. The figure is a little bit lower than some of the stakes horses, but despite being a sprint race, you did mention there is not a lot of early speed amongst a 5 furlong race. 1 kilometer, that's supposed to be a mad dash.
Yeah, well, I think the question is, if Jean goes to the lead, he probably crushes. The question is he going to get sent? I don't know enough about Torres. I don't know if this he doesn't always go, but this horse is fast. And it's not necessarily fast in the beginning here, but the horse can after 20 something seconds, this horse can book. But again, it's a 25% horse. It's a 3 to 1 horse. It's whatever. But if something happens and they do not go to the front and that one goes to the lead, it's very possible. This horse has some speed too. It doesn't appear to be, lightning quick. So there is quote unquote speed, but I hate that, right? Because even if there's speed, this horse is coming from the dirt, but it doesn't always translate. And sometimes these jockeys are instructed not to do that, but breaking from the rail is not easy. But again, this isn't something I would, send it on, but I'm saying if, gun to my head, there could be value here if this horse got out to the front, if Jean didn't run. So let's go to the 3rd race real quick. This is going to be your big day, dude. This is it. You're going to be, people are going to be replaying your call on this race for a while, especially if something magic happens. So I have not really looked too much at this race. I did, look at it for maybe 10 minutes, but did you want to kind of say anything that stood out to you or do you just want to be neutral because you're the race caller guy?
Well, as the on-air handicapper, I don't have a choice on being neutral there, too. That's kind of one of the things that's nice about kind of calling it a smaller racetrack, is that you get multiple jobs. And some might say, well, that sucks. But I'm like, no, that gives you the ability to, it actually makes you a better race caller, to be able to, you're forced to actually analyze the race. And then that makes it easier for you to be able to put 2 and 2 together of, okay, this is likely going to happen in the race, so I'm better prepared for it when it does happen. Or if this happens, if a speed horse breaks slowly, that's good to mention that, okay, something has changed. Stuff like that. But in terms of the Pennsylvania Governor's Cup, the big kind of look at that I have here, well, if you believe in like trainers. Mike Maker won last year's Governor's Cup with a manual, and now he claimed I'd Rather Be Blessed from Churchill Downs. The horse had a real rough trip in their last race. But at their best, I'd Rather Be Blessed, when they get to the early lead, they're a grade 2 winner when that happens. Now, that was a little bit of a miraculous win. They were like 80-1 or something, but that's kind of their max potential. And the trainer's already won this race once before, so I'd Rather Be Blessed, definitely very excited to call that horse. I actually saw him win his last stakes race at Fairgrounds, and that was what I told my dad was, if he gets to the lead, he can't be caught. And the horse won at like 17-1, and my dad made a little bit of moolah on that. The other horse that I really like in this, or really like looking at, is the number 2 Bartlett. Now, some of it's sentimentality, because Bartlett is a PA bred, and 4 PA breds have won the Pennsylvania Governor's Cup in its 40-plus runnings. So it has happened before, but it doesn't happen every day. I mean, DeHaas won the Pennsylvania Governor's Cup, around the same time that Lee DeJustice was winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint in 1996, 30 years ago. But Bartlett, that horse is interesting because even though he has never won on the turf, Patrick Moquin had a DRF article where he said that Bartlett's best efforts might have been on the turf. He most recently came second in the Alphabet Souf, which is basically just this race, but for PA breds back in March. So he's done this once before, and he came a close second. And then he most recently went near the lead and won the Stormcat against Uncle Heavy, alumni of the Preakness, and one of the better and another pretty good horse in Gordian Knot, who had a rough go of it last time, but in their past was a multiple stakes winner. So Bartlett, I don't think any surface really bothers him. He's just a good near-the-pace horse. I think he's one of the better PA breds, just period, at the moment. But I'd Rather Be Blessed is going to be very hard on the lead. I don't think Bartlett necessarily needs it, but that could be something right there.
Yeah, I think you. I would go back to, this is, again, I don't follow the circuit intimately. I think I don't think the 4 is going to get in front of this 2. I think this 2 is just gonna go, and I don't know if he's going to look back. So I'm with you, man. This horse is fast early. This horse is probably just gonna wire him. But again, now it's not about that. So one of the things I try to tell everyone too is, what's your bottom line price? So anytime I talk about a horse, I always throw a number on it, say, okay, Jean Valjean, if he's not 4, I'm not even going to touch it. Okay. And again, I might be greedy. I might be stubborn, and I might have another weird wrinkle. Like I said, if he's 6 or 7, I'm not going to touch him either. So I'm looking for that sweet spot. But like, to me, Bartlett, very high probability here. His, again, it's a function of the rest of the field. But these races sometimes can be won by like these kind of like mediocre horses, because a lot of times the better horses won't go here because there's higher purses elsewhere. So that's why I think Bartlett kind of fits, because he hasn't won on turf, like you said. And so he's in the right context. He's a Pennsylvania bred. So it makes total sense. So the question is, what odds should he be versus like I'd Rather Be Blessed? I'd Rather Be Blessed did win and shock the world a couple times, like you said. Those were pretty favorable scenarios where he got a length and a half lead here. And then the other one was back here, and he got a length lead. So I just don't think he's going to be a length clear. Maker's a genius, so he could move him up, but I don't think they'll send. So I think that puts him in a compromising position, given how fast that other Bartlett is. So to me, I don't really like Spellcast. I just don't think he's really that fast, but he fits the conditions. So it's not like, back to numbers, I wouldn't touch Spellcast in any context, but I would think that he should be at least 8 or 9-1 to even remotely consider him in the trifectas. So I'm really greedy, and really like the 7 is absolutely fine. This horse here, easily could, off that race, duplicate and win. So I would be a little scared of the 7, because this F35, as you saw here, also raced against, here, if I go back to right there, F35 beat this horse by 3 lengths. Okay. So somebody would say, oh my God, Bartlett's like 3 lengths behind this horse, right? Well, doesn't always work that way. Depends on the energy distribution, depends on a lot of things. So to me, I would be surprised if those two, the 2 and the 7, don't duke this thing out. But Yeah, so I would probably, have a soft no on, or maybe a soft challenge to you on this, on the 4. And if he wins, you'll look good and everything. But I respect the trainer. But back to the odds again, I'd rather be blessed. I probably wouldn't. See, this is the problem. If he goes off at like 8-1, then it's weird, right? Because now he doesn't have money on him. People probably should be betting him. Like, what's going on? So to me, it's a very difficult race to make money on. But if I were to try to make money, what I would do is I would not bet the 7 or the 2 to win, because I'm going to need, I still wouldn't put him, below, 5-2. So that means I need extra value to get the odds to win. So I would need like 7-2, 3-1, 7-2 to start considering the win bets. And also you got to worry about the odds drops and things. And I don't know what you guys are doing with the CAW stuff, but to me, if you're going to make money in this race, you're going to have to try to find, you're going to have to try to play a trifecta or superfecta with chaos. So that would mean to me, if I were playing the trifecta, I would probably leave off Spellcast. So I would probably toss him completely out of the top 4 positions, and maybe the 4 as well. I might leave this 4 completely out too, and just hope for chaos afterwards, and just hope that those horses don't run. But that's coming from a pure value standpoint. Again, very limited, maybe 10-15 minutes of looking at it last night, going through it now. But again, the good news is I feel confident that the 2 and the 7 both should be, 25% type range. So there's high probability there. The public's probably going to think it's like 30 to 35, and there's a point where you have to walk away too. So like if they go off at 4-5 and 9-5, then I wouldn't touch the race. So that's the discipline that I take on. And I encourage everyone to really set your boundary conditions, because you have to not only get the probability correct, you then have to factor in your overlay, your price value, so that you're actually making money. And that's why this race doesn't really fit the bill, which is I would want to bet heavily against a favorite, like in the first race, and try to take out 20%. But hopefully that gives you guys some ammunition for today. It'll make it fun for you to watch the races, but that's kind of my style. I'm looking at trying to beat a favorite, trying to find a horse that's improving that people can't see. If I have those 2 combinations together, then I can get into the plus 30 percentile range. And I'm just glad you guys are doing some good racing, because this is good. And I mean, it's one of those days where horse players should be looking at this, and maybe they can see things I can't. Maybe there's some stuff in the troubled trips. I didn't get to watch all the races, and maybe you could even encourage the community to, before the race, to, make a bold prediction or 2. But I know I'm talking a lot, but I wanted to end with, if you're going to make a statement to me, you have to risk something. And so money is one thing you can risk, but you can also risk your ego and, and say, hey, I think this horse is going to do something. And if he wins, I want somebody to do this. And so there's a lot of ways to kind of play in a humorous fashion that makes it still fun, if you don't want to throw like hundreds of dollars at a race. But
it's a good idea. First, I need to find someone to dare. Yeah, I've had a few of those humorous ideas. One terrible idea that someday I want to do, whether it's years down the line or tomorrow, is every time if I ever have to when I'm handicapping a track, every time I lose, I get pied in the face after the race. Like, I'll pick a small card, maybe like a 7 8 race card, and just see, and like, I get 2 or 3 horses in a race, and if none of them win after every race,
I mean, you just got to find who's going to throw the pie.
I'll find someone to hire. It can't be that hard to find someone who doesn't want to pie someone in the face.
I mean, I think that almost anybody would love to throw a pie at somebody who's wrong, and that's the beauty of the game is you're going to be wrong way more than you're going to be right. But when you're right, it's immaculate. It's one of the most, surreal experiences when you can see something unfold, especially if you're doing it like you did with your dad and you may hit the 17-1 shot with the blessed horse that time. But that's that's the thing. It's you play the long run. Horse racing is a long tail game. You got to think, okay, who cares if I win today? Who cares if I win tomorrow? Who cares if I win this week? I just want to be profitable. And that's a mindset that, scared money loses. And so you have to be patient And the fact that you brought him up shows me that you can definitely play. But man, well, this has been cool. So I guess we'll see how it goes tonight. I'll post this up and we can see if people get into the races. But I would say, yeah, like throw some commentary on Twitter when you're calling these races. I mean, this is it's probably the biggest day of your racing, calling career.
Yeah, of my race calling career, yeah, this is the biggest one. So I'll definitely have some fun with this.
Well, like I said, it's all good either way as long as you have your enthusiasm. I mean, that's one thing I do like about your voice is you got energy. So tell the story, and hopefully afterwards we'll have a good recap, because I'm going to probably reach out to you again about some of these these new ideas, because that was really helpful, and I'm glad that you're so passionate that you, like, literally when you're so young, you're just like, I'm going to start this horse racing channel, and I mean, that's what it is. It's in your blood, it's in your soul, and you want to share it, and I mean, it's changed my life. So good to meet you again, and let's keep in touch, man.
Absolutely. Stay in touch.